and welcome to Viral News. I'm your host, Stephen Calabria. Viral News is a podcast produced and released by whowhatwhy.org dedicated to the coronavirus and other news of a viral sort. On today's program, we'll feature two separate conversations with Adam Birkenpass, the co-owner of two factories in China that manufacture, among other things, medical face masks. The first of the conversations took place in late March, just after we'd all launched into our collective crisis, and the second took place just this week. Right now is a, let's say, unique time to own face mask factories in China. What we refer to as the novel coronavirus is believed to have originated in the Chinese city of Wuhan in late December, with its first recorded death on January 11th. The origins of the virus have led to a reported spike in anti-Asian sentiment across the United States and much of the world. This is on top of the already fraught trade relationship between the United States and China in general, because why not drop 50 gallons of gasoline on a raging forest fire? That fraught trade relationship faces further tensions in the wake of the coronavirus, as many of the most crucial medical products in the fight against the virus are manufactured in China. Which brings us to Adam Birkenpass, a Michigan native who has lived in China for roughly a decade. He co-owns two factories in the south of China and works with dozens of others in the production of apparel, medical face masks in particular. Hey, Adam.
How you doing?
Good. How you holding up?
Things are pretty crazy, but I'm okay.
Where are you right now?
I am now in Tokyo.
And you own what companies?
Unique Customs LLC and AuthenticManufacturing.com.
Okay, and you own a factory where exactly?
In China, I do manufacturing. I have Chinese partners there. We do manufacturing of garments, and I also do sourcing and trading.
Okay, and where are your factories located?
In Guangzhou, Dongguan, Shenzhen area.
And those are all in the south of China, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I do some business up in Shanghai as well.
Okay. And how did you first come to owning and running factories in China?
I came to China as an English teacher in 2009, and I made a website selling hats. And from there, I had to source hat factories. I couldn't get any factories to do a small minimum that I needed for my clients. So I partnered with a small shop in Guangzhou and helped them buy machinery and hire workers. And we started making baseball caps in small quantities.
When did you start that?
That was in 2012.
Okay.
And then from there, we started making other garments. I started connections with other factories, making all different kinds of clothing for the US market. And then I started getting requests from clients to source other items. So I would visit other factories, do quality checks. And that's when I started my trading business, so making products other than hats.
And then, just so the audience is clear, all of these are in the south of China. Can you explain a little bit, as to best to your knowledge, why is the south of China the epicenter of manufacturing?
That's a good question. I think it comes down to the different aspects of making a product. So when any product is made, there's multiple factories involved. There's usually not one factory that makes every component of a product. So those factories, as far as I know, they ended up building up near each other because they had to be near each other so that they could easily, for the logistics reasons, really. And the other reason is close proximity to Hong Kong, which is easier to ship out of.
And are there, to your knowledge, a great number of non-Chinese factory owners operating in the south of China?
Yes, I think that there are a few. I'm not really aware of any because I'm busy with my own. But yeah, it's a lot of foreigners, a lot of foreign companies. They have partnerships with Chinese factories, joint ownerships. And yeah, I'm certainly not the only one.
And so when the coronavirus first began in China, how did it initially impact you and your business?
My factory, along with most others, were not allowed to start production after Chinese New Year.
Which was when?
That was late February.
Okay.
So usually our factory, other factories, all of our partner factories that we get fittings from and fabric from, they take about a month off during Chinese New Year. And after that, things get back to normal. This year was different. After Chinese New Year, the coronavirus outbreak happened around that time. It started getting serious. So after Chinese New Year, the government wouldn't let most workers come back to work. They couldn't travel. So a few factories would open and make small orders, but most factories were closed up until just recently, up until a few weeks ago.
So it had an effect on your businesses beginning a
Oh,
few
for
months
sure.
ago, correct?
Yeah. Because I had open orders from clients that were very late. They had events that they needed clothing for, and I couldn't get them on time. So yeah, it had a pretty negative effect on my business.
So yeah, initially. And then when the virus first truly had an impact on the United States a few weeks ago, following the first week of March, how did things on the ground change in southern China, both for the business and for yourself?
Now, a lot of apparel factories have bought machines to make 3PLY masks, and they've gotten this. You'll see that a lot of factories have just gotten FDA approval because they've just switched over to creating medical supplies. Some of them are licensed, some of them are not licensed.
To your knowledge, does the United States have a rigorous process through which people and companies have to go in order to become licensed to do that?
I believe so. The licensing that seems to be easier would be from the Chinese government to allow these factories to start making these goods. But for import into the US, they're going to need these documents, the FDA approval.
Now, here we are. You've switched over to making masks. How does that work? How easy is it to get the machinery? How easy is it to start up production? Walk us through what the process is like.
Well, that's something that my Chinese partner's handling because I've been locked out of China since the beginning of this. So he was able to obtain the machines and obtain the clearance from the Chinese government. So I've been stuck in Japan. It's hard for me to get back to China because there's a mandatory 14-day quarantine. They're not allowing travel from certain countries that are high risk, which would include Japan.
Okay, so now here you are, your company and your factory have switched over to making masks. What is
Yes.
this situation on the ground like in China as far as the orders that you're having to process? How's it going?
It's pretty difficult right now because I'm having to turn down most organizations that come to me and ask for masks, or I'm having to recommend other companies or source other companies for them to make those masks
Why is that?
because we only have a very limited capacity. We're not a large organization.
Based on the size of a given factory, how many masks are you able to produce at a given time?
Per day, about a million
A
of
million
the
masks a
3PL
day.
of the 3PLY. It could be for surgical use or non-surgical use. They're relatively easy to make. Almost any factory could buy the machines and start making them within a few days. And I've actually received requests from the US, from US clients that said, could you help us get machines here to make them here?
And what do you tell those customers?
That's not something I've done before. I've never exported machinery, so I don't feel comfortable doing that, but I can point them in the right direction.
So when someone comes to you and asks you for this, what type of direction do you typically send them to?
I'll just give them the number of someone that I think they could obtain a machine from.
Well, presumably the same sorts of people that you obtained your machines from, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. And those are also in China or in America?
Those are in China.
And who are your biggest customers, would you say?
Right now, it's local fire departments, local hospitals in my home state of Michigan,
Was that
small
by
organizations like that.
was that by design or how did that fall into place?
No, it's actually just because friends of mine gave my contact information to departments of hospitals and they contacted me and asked if I could help. I haven't been attempting to gain new customers. I don't really have the time for it. I'm bombarded with orders. It's very stressful because I have to pick and choose who to help. I have a lot of friends in the Philippines as well, and they're having trouble getting them through customs.
How so?
Well, the last time I checked, they're stuck in customs. They can't get them through, and they're asking for donations. I've been contacted by an agency in Guatemala as well, but I haven't exported to these countries before, so it's hard for me to export to them. So I'm looking for government contacts that can do that for me
So
in those
contacts within
countries.
in those governments that would be able to help you export the masks into them. What are those countries?
Yes, because it has been private agencies, for example, in Philippines that don't have those connections.
Right. And so who are the countries that you've been dealing with that would most benefit from streamlining the processes for getting masks into those countries?
It seems to me that Philippines, I've gotten a lot of requests from local hospitals that are in short supply. And I've received one request from Guatemala. I'm not sure about their current situation.
Are masks the only product that you are producing currently?
Well, there's two different kinds of masks. There's 3PLY masks and there's N95 respirators. So a typical face mask or surgical mask, it's resistant to blood splashes, bodily fluid splashes, but there's air coming from both sides. So it's not resistant to airborne particles. Only N95 respirators are resistant to airborne particles. So I think that's an important distinction that the average person needs to know.
And who is the typical person that would use a regular face mask versus one of the respirators?
Doctors use both. During this time, nurses and doctors are all using respirators. Police officers, fire departments are using respirators.
And are respirators that much more difficult to produce than the regular face masks?
They are in a bit shorter supply. The NIOSH certified ones are in much shorter supply. The Chinese certified KN95s are more readily available and can be produced faster.
But is there a difference, though, between the ability to produce regular face masks and the ability to produce respirators? Is one more difficult than the other?
Yes, there's only a few factories that are producing the respirators. It's easier for factories to produce face masks.
Okay, and what are the impediments to producing more respirators? Are there a greater number of certifications that you need, different kinds of equipment? How does it work?
Yes, it's the certifications, the equipment. Most of these respirators, they're brands. So they're not generic. They have to be from a brand that is certified by the FDA, that is on the CDC website. You can look this up on the CDC website. When you see a respirator online or someone tries to sell you a respirator, take a look at the model number and the brand, look at the CDC website, and make sure that it's FDA approved, NIOSH approved.
Why is it not something that's possible to produce in the United States?
That's a good question that I wouldn't be able to answer because I've been doing manufacturing in China for the last 8 years. As far as I know, it's a labor issue. That's why I have not manufactured in the US is a labor issue. The cost of labor and the price that my products need to be at to sell at wholesale in order to compete with other garment companies. So that has been my issue doing garments for 8 years.
And why is there such limited capacity in both your factories and those elsewhere in China for producing these masks?
It's just the demand. The demand is there. They're working around the clock. They're stuffed with workers. There's just such a high demand, not just from America, but from other countries. I've received requests from Israel, from Belgium, the UK, possibly, I don't remember the other countries, but it's not just America right now. There's a lot of countries that are trying to get these masks urgently.
And you had a stockpile up until recently, correct?
Yes, for only a few days. Yeah, it was about 1 million masks. This was before things got really bad in the US, so I don't think the demand was there yet. And we had them because of the crisis in China.
You had produced them for Chinese customers who were looking to purchase them.
Yes.
And then as demand in China went down, demand from the United States and elsewhere went up.
Correct. Yeah, it seemed to happen overnight.
And you perhaps were in no position to accommodate such a skyrocketing level of demand over such a short period of time.
No.
In this case, what kinds of lead times are customers looking at right now?
It depends on the country. It's taking, for 3PLY masks, it's taking currently a couple days to produce 1 to 2 million pieces, and then about 3 to 5 days shipping. I'm usually using the DHL or UPS or FedEx, which takes around 3 to 5 days and a day or two to clear customs in the US.
Okay, so you're looking at around a week.
Best case scenario, yeah. But I'm getting a lot of requests for NIOSH certified masks, which is a different certification than the simple 3PLY. And my partners make those. I don't make those directly, but those are in much shorter supply. And there seems to be a much higher demand for those because those are what the professionals are using in the hospitals, in the fire departments.
And what are the regular masks called?
Well, there's a few different kinds. There's a 3PLY, a sort of common mask that is not for surgical use. Then there's a 3PLY mask, which is basically like 3-layer mask for surgical use. And then there's the 5-layer mask, which would be known as a KN95 or an N95 mask. KN95 is a Chinese certified mask, basically the equivalent of an N95. Those are more readily available than the American version, which would be the NIOSH certified version. However, the KN95, some manufacturers, not all, some have FDA approval on those, which I would urge anyone purchasing those to check.
Why?
Check the FDA approval on any mask that you're ordering from a Chinese supplier.
Why is that?
Because you need that. You need that in your hospital. Otherwise, your hospital is liable.
And so what is the difference between a mask that a surgeon would use and a mask that everybody else would use?
It's just the fluid retention. It's just a better quality.
Would you say that the rhetoric coming out of the White House and certain other quarters is helping or hurting the likelihood that these kinds of supplies will be distributed stateside in a timely manner, at least when it comes to rhetoric surrounding China and the virus?
It seems, without a doubt, I have to be honest here, it seems that's hurting it.
The ability to deliver masks and other supplies to the United States is being hurt by the rhetoric.
Yeah, basically, we don't want to be sending out this blame game to China because they're the ones saving our lives right now. They're the ones making these on the ground level, the workers, the factory owners. You know, obviously, everything from the U.S. media is going to be filtered through the Chinese media. So take that what you take. You know, I don't want to give out too much information because I don't want to anger the Chinese government, anger my partners as well. But it's in general, it seems to me that the information coming from U.S. media is not making the Chinese happy because it seems to be that they're being blamed.
So what could the United States, its government, its institutions, its businesses, what could they all be doing to make these processes easier from your point of view in terms of making it easier to obtain masks and more efficiently obtain masks?
I would say encourage organizations to work with Chinese organizations and not be scared to do it because they can't look at them as an enemy. They're our friends in this situation. We need them.
Okay. Was there anything else that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think that's the main reason I came here is that I just want to encourage people to have a more open-minded approach to getting their medical supplies from China. And for the average person, for the common person, just in quarantine right now, China is saving our lives right now. So try not to be racist.
If any of our listeners would like to purchase a bulk order of these kinds of masks and distribute them in their communities, how would they best get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me at adam@authenticmanufacturing.com. And my website is authenticmanufacturing.com. My company name is Unique Customs, LLC.
We'll be right back with our follow-up interview with Adam, but first, be sure to check out Who What Why's other podcast, Radio Who What Why, hosted by radio personality and journalist Jeff Scheckman. Also, to read Who What Why's groundbreaking print reporting, check out the site on the web at whowhatwhy.org and on Twitter. Since our first conversation with Adam, the fight against the novel coronavirus has evolved significantly. As of this recording on April 15th, the United States is number 1 in the world in recorded cases and recorded deaths, with over 641,000 cases and over 28,000 deaths. And yet, data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention finds that far more Americans have complied with social distancing measures than had been predicted. Forecasting models now anticipate the number of American deaths to be fewer than 70,000, a drastic difference from the predictions of some models in March that put the American death toll at around 2 million. Things have been no less complicated on the Chinese side of the divide. On the plus side, new cases are also down around the country, and cities are slowly but surely ending their lockdowns. And yet, much like the United States, China's economy has taken a huge hit. The situation is exacerbated by trade tensions and the ongoing shortage of needed medical supplies like face masks and hospital gowns. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, the United States would need approximately 3.5 billion masks in the event of a year-long pandemic. As of mid-March, the Strategic National Stockpile had around 12 million. On April 14th, we called Adam to check in on how things were going at what is one of the world's epicenters of manufacturing. So what's going on?
Well, I'm focusing right now making 3-ply masks. Today, I'm getting ready to ship out 200,000 by air. That's what I've been spending most of my time on.
You're still in Japan, right?
I am. I'm still in Tokyo, so I'm doing everything remotely. I have people in Shanghai and Shenzhen and Xiamen that are going to the factories and sending me video. Not an ideal situation, but there's no way for me to get into China right now, and probably no way for me to get there for another month or so.
So how are things on the ground? Who are you selling to predominantly? How much are you selling? How's it going?
I'm selling to a wide variety of clients right now. Some of them are hospitals. Some of them are businesses, small businesses that want masks for their employees when they come back to work. And some of them are government contractors. There's a wide range of clients right now wanting different types of products.
And how has the situation changed for you in the past few weeks since we last talked?
Not all of the prices have been rising, but the prices on the coveted N95s have been going up. I think they're about 50% higher than they were 2 weeks ago. Most of the 3-ply masks, they've kind of stayed the same, maybe gone down a little bit.
And has your consumer base changed at all?
I've just been getting approached by a lot of random businesses. Most of the people that have been approaching me have been one-man businesses that are contracting for the US government. They're putting in bids online, and then they're just going to people like me to fill them, which I don't mind. But in all honesty, it's kind of annoying because people are just asking me to bid every day, and I would rather a serious order.
And would you say most, if not all, of your clients are in the United States?
Yeah, I would say about 80% of them. I'm working with Latvia as well, and also a client they are in Dubai, actually. I've heard a lot of stories in the past couple weeks. A lot of private equity firms or companies, and I'm not going to say which country they're from or who owns them because I don't know exactly, but they've bought up millions of these N95 masks and are essentially just keeping them, selling them to the highest bidder and saying, you can order a minimum of 5 million and it will cost you $6 per mask if you want 3M masks. So I've seen a lot of that, which is disheartening. When this thing happened, I went to my entire network in China and said, let's all work together and see what we could see what kind of medical supplies we can get. So that's why I'm hearing a lot of stories about different items. And of course, there's been faulty items sent to pretty much every country. I don't know who those countries were ordering from, but that is an issue that people have to look out for.
How has the change in the political climate altered what it is that you're doing, if at all?
Well, I haven't seen a lot of changes in the US other than allowing the KN95 mask to be imported, which I thought was a big help because there's so much more of those available in China and it's better than nothing. Although many hospitals have told me that they don't want those. Even if they are accepted for import, they don't want a KN95. They don't think that it works as well as a NIOSH approved N95. That's just what I've been hearing from them. There's some other products that I believe are in high demand, such as isolation gowns, nitrile gloves, and those are in short supply because of the raw materials right now in China. Yeah, I've had a lot of requests for isolation gowns, and it's been very difficult for me to find reliable factories that are making those.
Okay. Do you think listeners should be panicking at the idea that so many of
No.
these materials aren't available?
No, I don't think they should be panicking. It's just that the reason why there's a shortage of some of these supplies is because of raw materials. And some of those raw materials are used to make a wide variety of medical supply. There's just not a lot of, well, okay, let me just put it this way. The raw materials in really high demand. I think there's just not enough to go around right now. And I don't know that for sure, but and then the other issue that I'm finding is that many U.S. companies, and I'm just speaking from that perspective, of my clients in the US, they're scared to put down a deposit on an order. They're scared to put down a 30 or 50% deposit because they're hearing stories about fraud all over the place. So I've had clients that they said, for example, I need 500,000 face shields, but we can't pay you until it gets here. And I totally understand their position on that. But for me, I have to pay the factory for them to make those. So I would have to have that.
Meaning the factory workers.
Exactly. So, and for face shields, I'm not producing face shields in my factory. I'm sourcing those from another factory. So I have to pay them before they start production. Usually 50% they'll accept. In some cases, 100% upfront. Although I try to find suppliers that are willing to do 50%. However, I can't just put up my own money without a deposit from my clients. And some clients, many clients are apprehensive to do that. I understand why they're apprehensive to do that. However, this is also the reason why these supplies aren't being shipped faster to the US. From my perspective, okay? There's lots of other companies doing what I'm doing, and they might not be having this problem. It really depends on your client, right? It depends on what terms they're willing to accept. And for me as a small business, I need a deposit up front.
Based on what it is that you are seeing on the ground in China, what do you think are some of the ways that the logjam can be broken?
I've discussed this with my colleagues and employees, and we came to a conclusion that the people purchasing have to have capital to lose because, well, it is risky to send $20 million to China for a large order. And in many cases, these medical supplies are needed in such high volume that, a $20 million order is not a very large order right now. That's an order that would be necessary to get supplies like masks and face shields and gowns into medical professionals' hands. I haven't handled an order that large yet, but some of this might have to be a humanitarian. We've reached out to celebrities. We actually reached out to Shaq. We're hoping to hear back from him. His assistant said he will pass along the info to Shaq. So we've been reaching out to celebrities to see if they would be willing to work with us or try to help fund some of these productions, because the funding is really the issue right now. If you're dealing with a large organization, venture capitalists, they're willing to put that money up, maybe. But a lot of the clients I've been working with, they've had trouble putting down that initial deposit, and in many cases, putting that final 50% down before it ships. In most cases, you have to pay that factory. We send videos of the products being loaded onto the plane, and then the funds are released. It could be an escrow payment. But during this situation, the factories need to get paid when the goods leave that factory. And a lot of clients, they would rather pay when it's in their hands. And I totally understand that. But it puts me in a difficult position. I'm in Tokyo right now, and we've just went on lockdown because the cases have been going up every day. And here's another country that's going to have a high demand for medical supplies. And whether people like it or not, most of them are coming from China, and you have to get them from China. That's where the factories are. And now it's possible that countries like Japan are going to need these. So I don't know where the supply and demand is going to be in the next month or so. Prices could be higher. I really don't know. It's hard for me to give any advice on this right now because I've never been in this situation. I think most of us have never been in this situation. I've also talked to inner city hospitals that don't have a lot of funds to pay for these supplies and certainly can't put up money up front. So how are they going to get the supplies that they need? It just seems like a lot of hospitals and companies are pretty desperate right now because they're coming to small businesses like me. I'm talking with, in some cases, billionaire CEOs that are begging me for help. That's a position that I never expected to be in.
Let me ask, when you receive an order and the customer wants to pay you at the very end of it, how does that conversation usually go? These days, do you usually tell them, no, that's just not possible? Or is there some kind of a deal that tries to be struck? How does it go?
In some cases, I'll weigh the risk on my end. And if I think it's a risk worth taking, I may accept it. It's really a case-by-case basis. If it's a small company, it's difficult for me to do that. And it depends on, it really depends on a lot of factors. I can't really give a one-word answer for that. if it's a reputable company and I have the funds to cover that extra cost until I get it delivered and they release their final payment, that's okay. I can do that. But in some cases I can't.
Now, in those cases, when you can show them the video of it being loaded onto the truck, loaded onto the plane, whatever, how can they be reasonably sure that it is going to make it to its preferred destination?
In many cases, we can ship under their shipping account with DHL, FedEx, or UPS. We can ship under my company's DHL account as well. So once that's loaded onto the plane, most clients that have done international trade, they're at ease because they know that that's insured at that point. In case something happens in transit, the product is insured. The only issues is going to be customs, because that seems to be changing every week as well.
In what way?
In my experience of doing international trade for almost 10 years, I never know when a product I send is going to be stuck in customs for a day or two. So I've never had an issue with any of my goods being confiscated. But if you're on a deadline, sometimes they're holding it for a couple of days. It's a rare occurrence, but U.S. Customs is very busy right now. So I don't know. When I ship something, I don't know how long it's going to take. DHL may say 3 to 5 days, but they've been experiencing delays. It also depends on where I ship it from. If I ship it through Hong Kong, there have been a lot of delays shipping from Hong Kong. Usually we would ship through Shenzhen to Hong Kong. It's a little bit of a cheaper rate, but there's a bit of a logjam there. Shipping from Shanghai, I believe, is a bit better now, 5 to 7 business days, but I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know if it's going to get better or worse. It's difficult for me to quote a turnaround time right now because of those factors. But I will say that there are people like me in China that are Americans, and we've had trading businesses for years, and we're trying to help out in this situation, but we're having some difficulties. Sometimes it's working out, but we're having some difficulties, and I just want people to know that we're trying.
Well, Adam Birkenpass, thank you so much. Where can our listeners find you?
You can email me at adam@authenticmanufacturing.com. My Instagram is adam_the_Berko. You can send me a DM anytime. My Facebook.
Berko, that's Berko?
Yes. That was my nickname since I was 12. So that's my Instagram handle. And my Facebook is just Adam Birkenpass. There may be a couple, but I'm the only one that would say founder of Authentic Manufacturing. And my website, again, is authenticmanufacturing.com.
Adam Birkenpass, thanks a lot for being on the show. We wish you luck.
Thanks, Steven.
If you liked this podcast, please share it and help others find it by rating it and reviewing it on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. The show is a production of whowhatwhy.org, which depends on contributions from readers and listeners like you. To make a donation, visit the website at whowhatwhy.org. Once again, I'm Stephen Calabria. Stay safe and stay home.